Welcome to the Unit 3 Human Digestion Lab. We are going to be covering Part B, the milk digestion portion. When you read the directions for Part B, milk digestion, it explains that we need to use the pipette labeled milk, and then we're going to put 1 pipette of milk in each of the 4 test tubes on the rack. This is the table that you need to use when you're filling the test tubes with solutions. Every 2.5 milliliters is 1 dropper full. So if it asks you for, in the first test tube, milk and water, and then nothing for the third, that's 1 dropper full of each of these, and no third substance for test tube 1. When you come down to test tube 4, you'll have 3 dropperfuls worth of milk, lactase, and hydrochloric acid. So let's walk through this. We've already discussed the lab setup in the pre-lab and intro section. What they want us to do is grab the pipette here that's labeled milk and add 1 dropper full of milk to each of the 4 test tubes. And it's going to go like this the whole time. What I'm going to do is go ahead and fill these test tubes just like it instructs me to do on this table. So I'm going to put water, hydrochloric acid, and lactase in the next series like this. I'm going to grab my test tube for water. And it says right here, milk and water. Down here it says milk and acid, so I have to go up here to the hydrochloric acid. Put it in this one. And then for the last 2 it says milk and lactose, or I should say lactase and lactase in the next 2. So I have to put this in both of these 2 test tubes. And in the final test tube, I'm also going to add hydrochloric acid. So I'm going to add this substance to that test tube as well. All right, now our instructions say when the milk is digested, lactose, a sugar, is split. So that's going to release glucose and galactose, and we're going to test that with a glucose strip, but not until we've had time for the procedure to occur. What we are going to do is write predictions about what's going to happen in these test tubes. Predictions, okay? And so when you look at this lab, you're seeing that milk and water. Now you can probably imagine in your own kitchen, if you combine milk and water, is the milk going to get broken down? Milk and acid, milk and lactase, and milk, lactase, and acid. The thing here is we have already learned what breaks apart lactase, the sugar. We learned that in a whole separate lab in Unit 1 called the lac-operon lab. So we should be able to make an educated prediction about which of these 4 test tubes are going to see some results. I also am going to take a moment here to talk about what a control is. All of these test tubes have milk as their base. And we also know that water as a solution chemically is relatively inactive. And so when we have a control, it's usually the one that only has water present. So that's kind of a clue for you here. So what we're going to do is think about what might make lactase, the sugar, break down into glucose and galactose, the 2 smaller sugars that are present in it. And if you need a reminder of that, feel free to go back and visit your lac-operon lab from Unit 1. But you're going to add these, we are going to add these together to the prediction table down here. In Part E, record the results, prediction. Now the test tube 1, it's asking you to predict whether or not there's going to be glucose from this reaction. Now that's just milk and water. So I'm going to predict no because water is a control. Okay. Now number 2, I'm not sure. So I'm going to put some question marks. In that one it is milk and acid. So you think that it would be broken down. Be careful of whether or not glucose is present though. You can break down a bunch of stuff, but that doesn't mean it's going to make glucose. Acid will take care of a lot of things. All right, and then 3 and 4 both have the presence of this special enzyme called lactase. And when you read your background up here, it explained that Lactase is an enzyme that breaks down lactose into glucose, bing, 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 and galactose. So we're going to test for this milk sample for the presence of glucose. So for Scherzers, if there's lactase present, because if there's lactase present, then glucose will be produced. So I'm just going to say lactase is present. Now, don't get the two confused. Lactase is the enzyme. Lactose is the sugar. And that's all we need to do for now for this section. We can't do the test strip results without 48 hours being processed. And in this column, we're going to write down our predictions.